Zero-based budgeting? Zero-based budgeting is an accounting practice that forces managers to think about how every dollar is spent in every budgeting period. It can have both benefits and drawbacks. Pete Pyhrr developed the idea of zero-based budgeting in the late 1960s to early 1970s while he was an account manager at Texas Instruments. Many Fortune 500 and private equity companies have since adopted this budgeting technique. If you're enjoying this content and finding it helpful, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Understanding zero-based budgeting. A study from Accenture Strategy on zero-based thinking was published in 2018. It found that this budgeting method grew exponentially among the world's 85 largest companies at a rate of 57% each year from 2013 through 2017. Companies start with the previous period's budget as a template in traditional budgeting. They then build upon it. Each new budget usually increases incrementally compared to the previous period's budget. Companies only have to justify new expenses. Zero-based budgeting deviates from traditional budgeting in that the budget for each new period is created starting from a zero base. Companies must justify each expense before adding it to the new budget, even old and recurring expenses. Benefits of zero-based budgeting. The major advantages of zero-based budgeting are flexible budgets, focused operations, lower costs, and more disciplined execution. Managers must justify all operating expenses. Zero-based budgeting ensures that managers must think about how every dollar is spent, and they must do so every budgeting period. This forces them to justify all operating expenses and to consider which areas of the company are generating revenue. Keeps legacy expenses in check. Legacy costs might not be examined for years in traditional budgeting until there's some sort of economic shock that forces the company to take extreme actions. Expenses tend to grow over time, with each department protecting its budget from cuts. This can lead to significant misallocation of resources over time. Zero-based budgeting can prevent this from happening if it's done correctly. Managers must justify all expenses with zero-based budgeting. It generally doesn't matter if the new budget is higher or lower than the one preceding it. Drawbacks of zero-based budgeting. The drawbacks of zero-based budgeting include the possibilities of resource intensiveness, being manipulated by savvy managers, and bias toward short-term planning. Can reward short-term thinking. One of the major drawbacks of zero-based budgeting is that it can reward short-term thinking by shifting resources toward areas of companies that will generate revenue over the next calendar year or budgeting period. Some areas of companies that are typically viewed as long-term investments that aren't directly tied to revenue may be left with smaller budgets than they need as a result. These long-term investments can include research and development or worker training. This could potentially hurt a company because these areas are often key to remaining competitive over the long term, but they won't be generating revenue in the near term. It's resource-intensive. Zero-based budgeting takes a lot more time and effort to closely review and justify every budget element rather than simply modify an existing budget and review only new elements. Some critics argue that the benefits of zero-based budgeting don't justify its time cost due to this factor. Zero-based budgeting effectively creates a new, start-over budget for each accounting period. Each budget begins at zero, as the name suggests. A focus like this can keep costs and expenses under a microscope, and it can give managers more control. Opponents argue that this type of budgeting doesn't keep an adequate eye on future needs. Business owners might want to do a trial run on paper first, at least for a little while, before jumping in with both feet and committing to the process of zero-based budgeting. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover next. Until next time, stay informed and take control of your financial future.